Thank you. Great. Well, thank you everybody for joining Arbella's next webinar, our webinar on finding the best products for your Dynamics ERP system, subtitled Arbella's Product Showcase for Microsoft Dynamics 365, Finance and Supply Chain, or as it used to be known, Finance and Operations, or as we can sometimes just abbreviate it to ERP. Now, as you might know, Microsoft does like its acronyms, so we at Arbella do as well. So as we go through our agenda, you'll see that we also abbreviate our products accordingly. So what we have in our agenda today is basically we've grouped our presentation into three main components. So first is going to be our discussion around Arbella's accelerators for Dynamics 365 ERP. We're going to talk about our Arbella Configuration Manager, which will allow you to accelerate your delivery for Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. We also have a few products as well, 4 of them as you see, that we're going to be going ahead and discussing with you, basically giving you a high level and also a detailed view. We will have a question and answering session at the end. So I'll go ahead and I'll start with an introduction on myself. So hello everyone, my name is Corey Bakhtiari. I'm been with Arbella Technologies for 9 years now. My title is a Senior Consultant and Product Manager. So in my capacity speaking with you today will be as a Product Manager. So I will be discussing all of our products that will be pertinent to those organizations that are running Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012 or Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. A couple points about housekeeping. Up front, I do apologize. I am a little under the weather. I have a sore throat, so apologies if I go on mute. It's most likely to cough. Don't want to have to burden you with that. And if you can, please wait until the end of the webinar to ask or type the questions on the individual products or accelerators. What I would recommend, however, is that you do actually make notes of your questions, or you can actually type them in during the course of the presentation. Just take note that we will not be answering them until the end of the webinar. We will set aside some time to make sure we can get to as many questions as possible. And what we also want to do is we have a showcase of 5 products here, right? So what we want to do is we want to go ahead and get your opinion, basically pick your mind on. We're going to be asking you to take a poll to see which product you would like to see a demo of. And the winner of that product will be presented as a demonstration in a follow-up webinar to this specific one. However, if you are also interested in a personal demonstration, a non-webinar, some more individual one-on-one sort of a demonstration, or pricing information, please send an email to info@arbellatech.com, and please include in the subject Dynamics ERP products so it goes to the right individuals. We'd greatly appreciate that. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. So what we're going to talk about at first is our Arbella accelerators. Now, a couple points of definition about what an accelerator is. An accelerator is something, as aptly put, as accelerates the delivery of the implementation. Essentially, what you can think of it as it's a project implementation artifact that leverages Arbella's best practices, standardizations, pre-configurations, and even some source code to help realize value in less time. So these are going to be components of implementation projects that would help move the implementation along at a higher velocity so that we can reach a go live or we can reach a new rollout in less time. We're going to talk about our Arbella Configuration Manager now. We're going to talk about some general information, so kind of give you a high-level understanding, and then we'll go into some features and capabilities along with some benefits and potential use cases for each one of these capabilities. All right, so purpose, as I mentioned earlier, is to improve the value and accelerate project delivery as it relates to Dynamics 365, Finance and Supply Chain, or F&O. The target audience, or really the target clientele, are going to be those organizations that are actively implementing or will be implementing Dynamics 365. And the benefits include reducing setup and configuration times for new legal entities. So this could be brand new implementations. These could be existing implementations that just want to roll out new entities as well. Reduce time spent on user management. For example, sometimes tedious aspects of the configuration as well as the setup of users. We will help you through a wizard increase the time to delivery of that component of the implementation. Also, it assists with data migration activities with more details to provide context. For example, help text as it relates to fields when you're, for example, doing mapping activities. First thing we're going to talk about is our configuration browser. So our configuration browser is basically allows you to go ahead and maybe we take a step back here. Okay, what is a configuration? So a configuration is basically the baseline setup as it relates to a system, right? These could be these forms within the setup area of individual modules. You could think of these as your parameters, right? And what you can do with our utility is you can compare your parameters or your configuration across different companies. Now, you can also see what the different components of those parameters are across different companies. Now, the real benefit of something like this is that it's going to allow you to determine the readiness of rollouts for new companies. So you can go in and you can confirm that setup has been appropriately done without having to go into every single form within a module and validate that the data is in there. You will be able to simply browse through each pertinent configuration that you determine and confirm that the appropriate values are in there. And really this is nice because this will allow you to confirm and approve that setup, maybe for a legal entity or maybe for multiple legal entities, has been completed. So this is a useful tool. It really cuts down the amount of time it takes to do user interface navigation because it presents it all within a single form and you can go through the different parameters and do the validation singularly. And next component, and remember what we are talking about right now is we talked a little bit about the general information. Now we're talking about the features and the capabilities of the various components of our Arbella Configuration Manager. Is going to be our AOT browser. Okay. Now, our AOT browser, if you're not familiar, is basically going to enable individuals through the user interface to navigate through the application object tree as if they were in the development workspace so that they can see table properties, so they can see label definitions, and they can be used to determine, string size, fields, columns, and other data for reference. Now, this is nice because a lot of functional individuals and even maybe some environments which are tier 2, you will not be able to have access to the development workspace. The AOT browser will allow you to go ahead and without needing access to the development workspace, still be able to peruse the application object tree to determine these various values. Okay. One thing I will note about our AOT browser is that although it is part of our Arbella Configuration Manager, it is also free of charge on AppSource, so that you can go ahead and just go right now and you can download it. And if you would like a link or some information about that, please feel free to reach out to info@arbellatech.com. And really, again, key purpose or take away from this is going to be that, for those functional folks or those without access to the development environment, they will find this useful. And as an example, on my team, on the security and compliance team, they find it very helpful to identify securable objects. So for example, if you want to know how to provision security for a button, and mostly this is with regards to customizations or add-ons, you can use the AOT browser to go and navigate through a form, identify the button, its name, its unique identifier, and then you can provision security for it. And there's so many other use cases for this AOT browser, and I find it to be one of the most powerful tools within our tool set. But because we want to also make sure that we enable other customers, partners to be able to have this tool, we do provide it free of charge on AppSource. So it's also on GitHub as well. Table statistics. So table statistics, This is going to basically provide you some information around use case. Would you like to know what the usage of your system is, what modules and parts are being used, and how much? Well, an easy way to do that is to look at the number of records in the various tables by module or by process. And this is really useful in determining scope or effort involved with regards to updates or upgrades. And it also really provides system owners about the use case of the system. You know, maybe you're not sure how much the procurement side is being used or how much budgeting is being used. This is going to provide you that level of insight. And it's really a powerful tool for the IT team when it comes to doing an analysis around the usage of your ERP. Analyzing legal entities. Analyzing legal entities is going to allow you to compare the setup or the configuration, much like the browser was, of the parameters between different companies within the system. So this is nice because it allows you to view the differences between the setup, between different legal entities, and perhaps gain insight into the different usage by company of the system. What simply would do is you would select a company to be a baseline, and you would compare all the other legal entities against that baseline. The nice thing about this utility is that you can actually paste and or copy missing setup, configuration, or parameters from one company to another. So this is a quick way to help consistent or standardize all of that setup across your environments. This is helpful when it comes to rolling up a brand new environment, troubleshooting any issues that you might see in one legal entity that's not existing in another legal entity. And it comes with color coding as well as some information about what is a mismatch to help you easily at a high level identify where there are discrepancies. User management. User management or express user, oh, I apologize. Nope, that's my bad. I skipped ahead there. Analyze environments. Analyzing environments, similar to the legal entity component. But again, taking a step back, what is that we want to accomplish here? What it is that we want to accomplish with respect to this is that as we go through a project implementation, right, we have multiple environments that we are working in. We've got your dev, your tests, your gold environments, right? And oftentimes there can be differences or discrepancies between the setup or the configuration amongst those environments. So one of the ways that we have found at Arbella in order to help streamline this process of, you know, going down the project implementation lifecycle is to go ahead and compare the configuration or setup parameters between multiple environments. And you can identify as well the discrepancies. Similarly to the previous tools I had mentioned, you can also do this by company. You can do a quick link to the tables in question. If you want to really drill down into what the specific discrepancies are, you can go and do that. You can also determine the components of a discrepancy. Is it only in the source environment or is it in the target environment as well? One of the nice things about this, and this is something that comes up quite quickly in the course of our project, is would you like to confirm gold is ready to be copied to production? You know, would you like to troubleshoot issues between a gold environment and a test environment? This is going to be your utility that you're going to use. This is going to be the one that's going to help you identify where those, if any, discrepancies exist, and also help you determine the readiness of that environment for eventual rollout. Now to user management. Got ahead of myself there, but I want to apologize for that. Now, when it comes to user management, there are a few different components associated with it, right? So you've got a worker profile and you've got to import a user and you've got to assign roles, and all of these things can be tedious and manual and prone to error. What we have is a wizard to help you automate all those activities. First off, with the importing of users, as you can see here, same import form as you would in the native or standard functionality. But what we've done is we've extended it so that you can associate this user with a job or position. it will automatically create a worker profile, and then it would associate that worker profile with a user. And also, it will allow you to copy another user security role setup for this new user. So what would typically take anywhere from 15 to 20 clicks now will just be a few. So it's really powerful, especially for those organizations with a large user base, and those IT teams or those teams where they do the user management that are lean. And we don't want to also prevent, we also would like to prevent errors associated with that. And then lastly, on our Arbella Configuration Manager, we have our number sequence import. So basically, as we all know, number sequences are quite important. These are how you code your various data elements and data records. So what we have is an Arbella standardized styled and formatted template, and it's based on what we've determined to be the best practices. It provides useful meanings per number sequence, and it's available to import very easily. And it's essentially a template to quickly upload, and so that the number sequences are across your entire system are consistent and deterministic as well. All right, now we're going to hop into our products. So we had just got done talking about our accelerator. Now, our products essentially are a little bit different, right? Our accelerators, for the most part, are project implementation artifacts with the exception of Express User or the user management, which usually are going to be leveraged in the implementation process. Our products are going to be more along the lines of intellectual property or have more real-time use cases. They're going to be ones that you're going to be continue to see the benefits of throughout your usage of your system or of your ERP. Essentially, they fall under one of these two buckets, or sometimes both. They either extend out-of-box functionality to bridge gaps in workloads. Maybe something doesn't exist, which we would like to exist, or would have existed in a more ideal world. It also reduces non-value add steps in existing workloads, right? So if something takes a long time to execute because of maybe the inefficiencies or the redundancies involved in that process, we want to make sure that we can reduce those steps so that we can make that process as efficient as possible. All of these are app source published, and or with the exception of one, which is soon to be published. First one we're going to talk about is our Arbella Workflow Manager. I'm going to give you again some high-level information about purpose, target, and benefits, and then we'll drill down into some of the details. All right, so the purpose of our Workflow Manager is to allow the mobile approval, completion, and management of workflows for Dynamics 365 finance and operations. Okay, the target are going to be for those of us that are finance and operations clients that use workflows or use workflows heavily, and also the business users and the IT team. Now you might be wondering, why would those two be mentioned under the target column? For example, on the IT team, it's really to simplify and ease the adoption of Dynamics 365, right? What we are allowing you to do is have an app that will allow you to, or allow your end users to go ahead and manage workflow approval or work items. Business users typically find it easier, especially those who are non-Dynamics users, to use an application instead of logging into Dynamics 365 to go ahead and go and review their work items, right? So basically this simplifies that process by making it a point solution where you can go in and manage all your workflow items. This is especially useful for those organizations that are heavy on the delegation of authority or any type of approvals processes, typically maybe associated with purchasing. It also secures approvals from being forwarded over email because it requires every user, before they do any type of approval or rejection of a workflow, to authenticate that user's identity. So taking a step back, workflows are pretty key when it comes to a variety of different processes within Dynamics 365. You can set up workflows on a variety of different sub-processes. For example, journal entries, purchase orders, sales orders, what have you. And if you've got a workflow with approval, and if you've got a heavy usage of that, what we have developed is a Power App that will allow you to, or allow your end users to simplify the approval and some of the components around completion of work items. If, for example, you have a task workflow as well. So you can do a variety of different management components, and it is on the go. So basically that means that it's something that you can download on your phone or on a tablet or even on your desktop. So a couple things about our Arbella Workflow Manager. So you see a screenshot of it on the right there. But basically what it does is every time you open it up, it pulls real-time data from Dynamics 365 F&O. So it basically, in this case, identifies all of the workflow items that are assigned to your user, okay? And it is essentially a carbon copy of work items form in Dynamics 365 F&O. And instead of having to log into the environment, it's as simple as just opening up an app on your phone. It lists all the work items that are assigned to you. It provides details on those work items needing approval. And this is configurable. So you can specify what details by workflow you want to be included in the approval item in the app. And you also have the ability to view documents attached to the item of requiring approval. An example of this would be expenses for receipts, much rather, for an expense report, right? We want to make sure that this expense report is valid, and so we want to go and review or view the receipt associated with it. You're going to be able to do all of that within this app. It allows you to filter your queue, or essentially the list of approvals you have by work item type. You have a search feature, and it preserves the workflow audit history. So it doesn't preempt or go around some of the nice auditable features or functionalities within Dynamics 365. It maintains it. So really, again, this is an extension. And this is the way that Arbella approaches all of our accelerators or our products, is that we ensure that they are non-invasive and that we work with Microsoft to validate and certify each one of these so that all of the out-of-the-box or native functionality can be consistent in working with what we have developed and what we will deliver. Furthermore, we also have deep links into the work items within the Power App. So, for example, let's say that the information provided in the app is not enough and you want to drill down into details. Maybe you want to see the financial dimensions or something similar like that. You can go ahead and click a link and it will open up Dynamics 365 for you and point you directly to the work item in question. We also have alerts. Now, one of the things that might happen is we might have a lot of work items, or we might get busy, or we might be on vacation, or something might come up where we're not always ready to open up the app, and maybe we're not for some other reason. You can also have push alerts or notifications set up very easily so that you can be notified when a work item has been added to your queue, or when or after a certain amount of time after it has been added to your queue and it has not been addressed yet, either approved, rejected, or completed if it were a task. And all of these are configurable. You can configure it by company. You can also configure it by workflow. And just to really kind of expand upon some of the configuration components of this, what we have are basically just kind of a couple screenshots just to show you, how it is and how basically we've really been able to leverage what comes out of box. For example, if you want to configure various properties of an approval item, so like in this case, a travel requisition or of an expense report, you can go ahead and include that in the description field of the work item so that you can add that extra context for a non-Dynamics user to see all the pertinent information to help them determine whether or not they should approve or reject this specific work item. So again, what we would do as Arbella is we do have training as well as documentation to help you move down this path so that you can do it yourself or working with ourselves. Actually configure this so that we can provide as much information without it being overbearing as well. And also we've got an email approval link. If push alert notifications, having it on your mobile phone are not enough, what you can do is we also have this feature that allows an email automatically to be sent out to you. And then from there, you can click on the link and it will open up that work item within the app, okay? Again, what you will not be able to do is forward that email to somebody else and have them go through and approve that work item, because it does require user authentication, okay? Now you might be asking, okay, so this is great. So this is a Power App that is, it's built on the Power App platform. It's connected to Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. What would I need in order to run this? What you will need is you would need Power Apps license, a P1 license, if you're familiar with that, it's the lowest one. And you would also need an AWM product license. So that would be something that you would work directly with Arbella to acquire as well. So if you'd like any further information about this, please reach out to us at info@arbellatech.com. We'll be happy to answer any questions or provide you any pricing information. All right, moving on to our next product in this product showcase. Audit and Security Manager. Also, again, I do like our acronym, so we acronym this to ASM. We'll talk about our general information and talk about some of the features and capabilities. Okay, purpose. Purpose is to simplify and reduce costs for the generation of auditing reports and the management of security for Dynamics 365 Finance and Operations. Who is this going to be applicable to? Small, medium, and enterprises with security and auditing requirements, anywhere from medium complexity to extreme complexity, or really just lean teams needing extra horsepower around security management or around reporting. The benefits of this include reduced security deployment time. So this is rollouts of your security roles, duties, privileges to your users. Complete and accurate reporting, for example, around access controls or segregation of duties. Easier reviews, persona-based reporting, right? Because what you want to review from an access point as, a business process owner is not going to be the same thing that you want to review, for troubleshooting if you are a security administrator, right? So we have different types of reports based on the individual so that it provides, again, a nice middle ground between too much information and not enough information, depending on the specific context. We also want to make sure that we reduce IT staff involvement, because a lot of times when it comes to security or running reports around security or tracking changes, auditing, data, for example, requires a lot of IT staff involvement. A lot of it sometimes might be trial and error. And what we want to make sure we do is we want to remove as much of that as possible so that we can free up some of those key IT folks for other strategic activities. We also want to reduce the preparation time for audits and reporting. We do that with pre-configured rule sets. Talk a little bit about a summary of capabilities. We bucket our feature functionality into three main components. Really, audit reporting and preparation, which includes licensing diagnostics, for example. Are you, or how close are you to being compliant with your license purchased from Microsoft? This is always kind of a big unknown when it comes to it, because security is commonly an afterthought, right? Yet licensing is always something that's negotiated at the very beginning of a project, and yet licensing is determined by security. So there tends to be this pretty significant gap there in terms of when people want to try to bridge that, right? So what we want to make sure to do is whenever we get engaged, we want to always make sure that as if there are any changes around security that could help make our customers more compliant around licensing, that we can pinpoint those by identifying the low-hanging fruit. We also have change logs, tracking changes to your user or security for auditing purposes. Was it done appropriately? Did it follow the correct processes? Snapshots of your security to compare, to re-upload. Again, persona-based reporting, Power BI integration. And then we've got you're managing a risk and compliance. So as I mentioned, we've got some pre-configured rule sets. We've got access controls. We've got pre-configured access controls, data auditing, as well as segregation of duties. What does that mean? That means over the course of our experience, the last 9-10 years of having being engaged around security and audit or compliance, we have identified a set of cross-industry standards around segregation of duties, around access controls, about what data you need to track changes to. You can leverage those, and so you could hit the ground running fairly quickly. You can archive and change track all of these, and you can also have this other neat feature where as Microsoft rolls out different updates, right, or as you roll out different customizations, you want to make sure that any type of reporting regimen you have takes account for those things, right? So what we have is the ability to report on what has been updated in the system and who has access to those updated, security or entry points, much rather. And if they're custom as well, what are they? Who has access to them? And then it allows the business or audit to go ahead and review that and make sure that all those updates are appropriate. And then lastly, we have security management. This is where it's going to really help you around going through business processes, identifying either if you need to create custom permissions or if you can use out-of-box roles or duties to help enable users who need to accomplish those business processes. You can also perform mass updates to legal entities and user role assignments. There's also a Power App allowing that, enabling you to do some of those user management components. It does also come with a workspace and allows you to manage and report on customizations as well as third-party add-ons. This is an example of our workspace diagnostic tool on the left-hand side where you can see some information about your licensing, your post functions, and your number of admin users. Then you have some reports that you can drill into that will give you information about, okay, what are the most violated segregation of duties policies? What are the most number of users who can perform a specific activity, for example, creating a new vendor? All with basically providing you insight at a high level into the exposure your system has as far as a risk point of view is concerned. Access controls. Getting a little bit into more detail. Okay, so what you get the access controls on Audit and Security Manager. These are essentially your functionally sensitive or significant activities within the system, right? So these are your actions that could pose a risk if you were to inappropriately assign it to someone, right? This could be system configuration, hosting, or approval activities, even master data management. Again, we at Arbella, we have a set of predefined, it's a template of those functionally significant actions that are modeled out of out-of-box functionality. And essentially what this allows you to do is to identify restricted access or privileged security. Who has access to these specific functions? Let's have someone review them, most likely a business process owner, and let's ask them to determine if that is appropriate. All right? This is you would consider this to be a typical or standard user access review. Excuse me. We have these categorized by business processes so that you can separate these for the appropriate consumer, whomever would need to be doing the reviewing. It is also configurable so that you can actually, configure new ones. If you've got customizations, if you've got a third-party add-on, you can actually configure additional controls as well. You can archive the results or the rules themselves, and you can also track changes to them, okay? So that you can ensure the integrity of controls that you have in place. And the nice thing too is that what you'll be able to do, apologies, a little bit blurry, I see that now, but basically what you will do is you'll be able to generate a matrix report where you can see, in this case, you can see roles, but you could also do users on the Y column or the Y-axis, and then along the X-axis, you'll see your various access controls or your functionally significant actions, and you'll see which users or which roles have a variety of access by category or throughout the whole system. And that helps you really also get some insight into the exposure of the risk of how many people can or what can do certain activities, and also give you some the tools to help determine whether or not that's appropriate. And then one level higher is segregation of duties. Now really, segregation of duties is going to be like access controls, but more than one, right? So not just being able to maintain vendors, but also being able to, you know, process invoices and perhaps payments, right? Those would represent a segregation or separation of duties violation or conflict. And essentially what we did is we predefined those as well in a template. They are categorized by business process as access controls. And again, you can configure them. You can do, you can modify ours, duplicate ours and modify the duplicates, or you can just create your own. You can archive them, right? Because sometimes you want to start clean. You've just rolled out a whole new security model. You want to see what is, what you've got going currently, and you could even do this in a non-prod environment, you know, but you can then revalidate against your existing security after you've archived your results. And of course, again, you've got your change tracking component. And then we've also got our data audit. So if you're all familiar with this, there's this feature in, it was in 2012, and it's in D365. It's database logging, right? So this allows you to track changes to data elements. Now, what we have heard, we've gotten a lot of feedback from clients that it is cumbersome to set up, and it's not user-friendly to read the results or the tracks or the audit logs of the changes. So what we've done is we've done it, and it also has a performance hit, sometimes too much of a performance hit, because frankly, you know, it's tracking. So there's a trigger where a you know, basically it captures as things are being done those changes. So what we've done is we've really we've minimized the issues associated with those three components. So first off, around performance. So we've worked with Microsoft to drastically reduce the amount of resource consumption associated with tracking changes. Second thing is we simplified the setup of these controls so that you don't have to go into, you know, a wizard to set it up. You can just specify the tables, or you can navigate to a form where you know the field or the table you want to track, and you can just right click and you add it to a control. And so that really simplifies the setup of the tracking of changes. Then around the reading of the changes, because frankly, you know, because of the normalization of the table structure within 2012 and D365, there's a lot of references, cross-references across tables, right? Where you need to reference a rec ID, which is associated with another table, and then that way you can actually pull out some relevant information. And a lot of that in database logging does not exist, right? So you are left a lot of times in the dark about what you're actually reviewing, right? So for example, let's say you make a change to an address. Make a change to an address, great. You see you made a change to an address, but you don't know whose that address was, right? Was it a vendor? Was it a customer? What have you. Our tool is extendable to help you identify or expose those parent records or the related records associated with a change. So we've taken those three main issues associated with database logging and we've resolved them. And we also have our own pre-configured set of rules around customers, vendors, items, global tables, and main accounts as well that you can leverage from day one. And then lastly, on the security management side of things, only configuring what you want or what users need to have access to. You have a task recorder, an enhanced task recorder, security configurator, so that you can take task recordings and manage the security associated with them. This enables you to create a least permissive security model. And also it eliminates, for those organizations that have lots of legal entities, the tediousness of assigning role or company-specific roles, right? If you have an AP clerk in one company and that user is an AR clerk in another company, that takes 5 to 6 clicks to do. 2 clicks with our capabilities. All right. Apologies, everyone. You know, this is a little bit of a whirlwind. We're going through a lot. I hope you're all, you know, tagging along with me as we're going through this. We've got a couple more to get through, and then we'll open up the floor for some questions. Thank you all. Next up is our master data centralization. So the purpose for developing this product is to standardize and share best practices around master data across an organization using shared service model, okay? And essentially, whom this would be appropriate for would be organizations looking to implement a shared services model and improve data integrity. The benefits are going to be including centralizing master data management. So basically allowing a shared services model to manage your master data, customers, vendors, products, items, bombs, things like that. You can also reduce your master data governance issues and risk by enforcing approvals and also duplication detections, okay? Because every time you want to make a change or you want to create a new record, you can enforce an approval around that. You can do a workflow approval. You can do a more soft approval as well. You can also reduce costs associated with having each legal entity manage or maintain their own master data. You centralize that into a core group, and then you can have that core group release different master data to different companies. And if you have different data management requirements by company, for example, some companies need to be able to, you know, change the payment terms of a vendor, or some companies need to be able to change the credit limit of a customer. You can set that up, and you can enable a subsidiary model to have also that flexibility to control their own, you know, fields or properties of their vendors or their customers. Also helps with reporting. Centralize and keep consistent a single ID for all your master data. So this is an example. We're talking about customers and vendors. So basically it allows you to centralize your master data management or your master data within a non-transactional legal entity. You can determine which fields or which properties of your master data will be locally controlled at your, you know, individual company level or centrally controlled. You can share all the various tables. So for example, you know, there might be country specific or localization components that you need to accommodate. We have that built in so that that will not cause any problems, because, you know, you will have that if you have multiple legal entities and they are in different nationalities or in different countries or nations. There is an approval and release management as well. So essentially, you know, every time maybe a subsidiary wants to create a new vendor, or you know, a local company wants to create a customer or a vendor, then there's going to be an approval process and a release process to others as well. So if you think about it, you know, we've got like a corporate or a centralized entity, and then we've got a lot of the transactional entities underneath it, right? So when we're talking about local versus central, central is that more corporate entity at the higher organization level, and the local ones are the ones going to be underneath it. And then you can also manage addresses, because addresses are a component of your master data, right? But the thing is because they exist in the global address book, they work differently than your typical master data. So we also have the ability to approve and to do approval management of your addresses. So address changes need to also go through an approval process. And similarly, your precursors, for example, to customers and vendors, for example, your prospects, also can be managed through a centralized process with approval and release controls. Okay. A business case on this is going to be, so basically global businesses require standardization and yet flexibility, right? Seems contradictory, but we need to be able to accommodate those. Significant benefits, for example, around reducing costs can be leveraged with shared services. Having a single set of master data can help save money in the long run, help you maybe negotiate better trade agreements, knowing completely how much you're purchasing, for example, from a single vendor. It's got an extremely small footprint in the application. That's one of the nice things about this specifically one, and really our whole product suite, is that it is a framework and it can be extended, and it does not require it doesn't require a long lead time to implement either. It's very resilient and easy to set up and use. And then we've got, basically an example of what I had just mentioned previously. So if you want to centralize or localize control of certain properties of your master data, you're going to be able to do that. For example, credit management. You can also work with, the ability to work with the releasing and the centralizing of these various properties. And also, if you want to enable your local or, the subsidiary companies to also create their own unique vendors, you can still enforce an approval process that would create it in the centralized company and then release it back down to that local one that has initiated the request. And this is just a quick screenshot of the differences between, because there are components of, master data management within standard functionality and our solution. And this is just a quick screenshot about the differences, and you can just notice that we do have some extended control around instance management, and field level control. All right, one more product. All right, one-step consolidation. Purpose: simplify the financial consolidation process, make it repeatable and auditable for posterity. All right, and this is really targeted towards those organizations that are multinational, multi-currency, and they periodically provide consolidated financial reports. Benefits: reduce time spent on financial consolidations by 50% through saving settings. It's a complete consolidation too, so you can incorporate non-dynamics companies. So you can basically import maybe an Excel or CSV file for that. It's got a full audit trail. You have a complex organization hierarchy or troubles closing periods in time. OSC is flexible enough to handle them. So you can have some legal entities whose periods are still open, and you can consolidate everything else. Basically, what is a financial consolidation? Not to sound too pedantic, but really, it's just adding up all the pluses and minuses associated with the ledgers of an organization or a legal entity. And it's according to a hierarchy. And for example, this is an example of an organization structure. So you've got your more central or your corporate entity here, and an example of how this would work is you would be able to roll up individual legal entities up to a central organization. Just a couple points on the features. As I mentioned, we've got a full audit trail that saves consolidation settings and the forward exchange rates. If you have different dimension settings, you can map these dimension settings, and it still allows you to consolidate per company. It runs the forward exchange adjustment at the same time as the consolidation run without having to manipulate those same rates. It saves the settings, so you can repeat this as well. As I mentioned earlier, if not all of the entities you need to consolidate are in Dynamics 365, you can still consolidate them within the system. And if, for example, a month end has not been done, you can include or exclude and then reincorporate them afterwards in that consolidation run. So, and essentially, if you want to also, and this is really where it becomes super flexible, if you want to allow for historic data to be brought in versus consolidating and deal with forward exchange rates differences in the process, it allows for you to work with that historic data as well. So that is the set of features and functionality on one-step consolidation. And I apologize for going through that last one fairly quickly. I just wanted to make sure we set aside enough time for some questions. So do we see any questions?
Yeah, we have a couple, and also the poll is live, so you guys can feel free to vote on the poll for which product you'd like to see a demo of in a follow-up webinar. One of the questions is, would Workflow Manager have its own app on my phone?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So what you would be able to do is using the Power app, you would be able to save your own application to your phone. So you wouldn't have to, do more than one thing outside of just clicking on your screen on the phone on a single app, and it'll open up Argano Workflow Manager. So yes, you will see that it will have its own application icon on your, your desktop or on your homepage.
Yeah, and then another question is, how long is the implementation process for these products, and usually how is the process?
So yeah, that's a good question. And it's going to depend on the specific product. They're all fairly quick and they don't require a lot of lead time. The ones that are going to be more involved in the day-to-day use, for example, master data centralization, may take more time to implement just because if a company's already live, we may have to just make sure that we review and maybe do some data cleansing in advance. But otherwise, it's not a very long lead time. Typically for our accelerator, no lead time, right? Just need to deploy a package. For our more products, I would say it could be anywhere from 2 weeks to 4 weeks.
Thank you, and thank you for all that are voting. If you haven't voted yet, please do so in the poll on the screen. And I don't see any other questions, but we do have a couple more minutes. If anyone wants to ask any more questions, feel free to type them in the chat box.
Yeah, in retrospect, what we will do is definitely in the upcoming year, everyone, we will have more pointed webinars where we will talk more detail about our products. We just wanted to kick off the year 2020 with maybe just showcase, just kind of give you an idea of what Arbella has to offer. And, as Arbella engages with its customers and its prospects and Microsoft and the various other industry influencers, we do intend on expanding our product offerings and also extending our existing products as well. So any feedback, comments, thoughts, or even just general requests for new products are definitely greatly appreciated. And if you want to, again, send us an email to info@arbellatech.com with any of those items, and we're always happy to follow up on those as well.
So we have one more question, Corey. What is the process of requesting access to these products?
So it depends on the specific product. So if you reach out, so it's really not anything more than just you send an email to info@arbellatech.com, and then what we can do, depending on the product that you're looking at, we can point you towards maybe AppSource, where we have demo versions, or maybe we can provide you a trial version if it's not on AppSource. Or what we could do is maybe we could talk more about like kind of a POC, depending on how, the product is supposed to meet your requirements. One of the things we always like to make sure to do is that we want to make sure that you understand what you're looking for and what your need is and what your pain points are, and really also help determine if one of our offerings are going to add value or help really resolve that, because we don't want to do is give you something that you're not going to be able to use. So it's just one of those things where just send an email out to us, let us know what it is that you're interested in, and then that'll facilitate a conversation around whether or not, maybe we can point you towards the freeware, or, we can maybe get more detailed about what the specific requirements are and if our products will meet those.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Corey, for a great webinar. Very insightful, and we learned a lot from all the different products. So thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you for joining again.